Good morning, afternoon, or evening, ladies and gentlemen. Allincrypto here, and welcome back, guys, for another jam-packed daily cryptocurrency market update. I'm wishing you all a happy Monday, and if you are new to this channel and finding yourself on my videos for the first time today, don't forget to check out that subscribe button because we drop an update just like this one every single day at 1 p.m. UK time to help you guys stay up to date with the latest and greatest things happening within the crypto space, but also the broader markets. And it is going to be a very interesting week, and that's where we're going to start off by looking at some of the data that is going to be coming out this week. We also have Bitcoin running into short-term targets. The two patterns that we were identifying for Bitcoin, the targets for those have both been met. Typically, you do get a rest period after a target met. We'll see if that comes to fruition. I am, in the short term, certainly today and tomorrow, looking at the potential for Bitcoin maybe selling off marginally, but ultimately in the broader grand scheme of things, you know, this is an uptrend, don't bet against the trend. So I'm very hesitant to call any kind of downside. But in the short term, we have made a load of targets. We've got a lot of economic data coming out. It is Monday, so there's a lot of sort of direction taking. We'll look at the dollar. We'll look at Coinbase and Marathon Digital Holdings that both have significant gaps. We did have a gap on the CME that has been filled. So in regards to Bitcoin, so maybe that is the pullback over. But let's get straight into it, guys. And let's start off with a week ahead before we dive over to Joe Biden's Twitter page where he posted a picture of himself with laser eyes. Now, he definitely didn't post that. And I try and stay as apolitical as I possibly can on this channel, but sometimes it's quite hard given that individual. But to get into the week ahead, in regards to this being an interesting week, you know, you do have an FOMC member coming out today. And of course, we'll see what he has to say, maybe give us some forward guidance on what the Fed's thinking of doing. And remember, this is all a game of, you know, guessing what the people that have an ultimate control over liquidity and money are going to be doing. You know, markets adjust for rates, they move around rates. And that's kind of the macroeconomic game that we're playing at the moment. So you do have a Fed member coming out today. Tomorrow's really going to be an interesting one for me because you've got US CPIs. Now, they're expecting this to rise to 3.7. The revised one was 3.9. If you look on most places, it will still show at 3.4. So we did all anchored, and let's dive over to the Bitcoin chart, around the forming of this right shoulder that may now be complete. It's not there yet. You know, and you are at a resistance level, so you should expect it to act as exactly that. Also, short-term targets that we're going to get into in a second. This sort of spike down or this candle was, in many ways, it had a lot to do with a number of things. Of course, it was all technically signaled, but one of the contributing factors was a strong dollar based on higher than expected inflation. So what comes out tomorrow is going to be very interesting. Now, I actually think, and I'm going to stick my neck on the line here, that you may get a sub 3% year-on-year inflation for the United States. And I think that's going to see the markets do well. But going into that, you may have a little bit of chop and indecision. And then, of course, Wednesday, you've got UK CPIs, you've got Japanese GDPs, and then you've got UK GDPs on Thursday. So there's going to be a lot of things that are going to factor into also US PPIs, lots of PPIs and CPIs and GDPs coming this week. So that's all going to factor into the dollar and ultimately the broader flow of the markets. So it is going to be an interesting week from that point of view. Let's relate that to the charts in just a second. Let's quickly dive over to Joe Biden's Twitter page and take a look at what he posted yesterday after the Super Bowl. Now, is there any kind of a reference to Bitcoin here? I don't believe so. But isn't this interesting? You know, is Bitcoin a psyop? Maybe, I don't know. You know, certainly we have always questioned the origins of Bitcoin. But is this just a sort of voting thing? I don't know what this was really all about. Let me know your comments or your thoughts in the comment section. Knowing what's to come in the week ahead, let's look at how Bitcoin's setting up. Let's start off with the broader time frame. This is the plan. It's following it. When the market gives you positive feedback, you know you're onto something. And we've been very accurate from getting back into Bitcoin at 16K to where we are today. Targets have been met. On the smaller time frames, we were identifying a number of things. You had a kind of concession of head and shoulders. The daily perhaps isn't going to do it. Let's drop down to the 2 hourly because we're looking at this right shoulder specifically, which is here. Okay, we'll leave that where it is. This is the right shoulder here. From the point where you sold off, there was macro stuff in there. There was micro stuff. There was the ETF, buy the rumor, sell the news. Bitcoin essentially, and we did look at this right shoulder possibly playing out, then went on. Let's go up the time frames. I think a 2 hour will be just fine to do this. So you had a smaller head and shoulders in here. You can see quite a messy chart, and this all created around the 42K prediction that we gave in 2023. So it's a key level of significance. This target was ran, and this is actually where you started to run into a little bit of resistance. But you also had a broader one, and you can see, and for those of you that think technical analysis doesn't work and you think it's some sort of witchcraft or magic, just stay tuned to the channel. We will persuade you 100%. You can see that you did actually run into this, and you can see where you've started to pull back. So that leads me perhaps to believe that typically when you run a target, you have a period of rest, a period of kind of setting up for the next structure that you're going to embark on. The dollar also, and this is why Bitcoin and the dollar kind of went up together. Broadly, the trend is the dollar up, Bitcoin down, and risk down typically. But you had similar setups with both of these. You did have a head and shoulders here for the dollar, and you can see, look at where this ran into and is now sold off. I am very cautious at this point on calling completely flat on the dollar in terms of it's just going to roll. So our broader thesis, we've looked at the broader thesis for Bitcoin to 150K. Our broader thesis for the dollar is it comes down to the lower band of this trend. And we'll go on the monthly chart to show you that. So this is the kind of trend you've been in since essentially the government stepped in and we entered this more socialist world with governments having a direct impact over the world of banking and a kind of centralization of it. This is what we expect to happen. And this supports our Bitcoin thesis. This is also, by the way, not just blindly, there's kind of macro rate conditions that would dictate this. You can see when rates come down, the dollar comes down, so on and so forth. That's why the dollar's been so strong. And of course, the adversary of that is risk. But what the Dixie is going to do on the short term is still to be seen. So I'm kind of a little bit more bullish on the Dixie in the short term, and it has invalidated this downtrend at this point. Concession of lower lows and lower highs, and now you put in a higher high and you're putting in higher lows. So we need to see this roll. With Bitcoin making its target, you know, it may want to have a little bit of a rest period. There is a lot of shorts that could get liquidated at 50K. This isn't just a target met. This is also broader resistance. On the likes of Coinbase, which bounced beautifully where we were expecting it to do so, it also is showing gaps. And typically in the stock market, gaps get filled. So this may want to come down. That could be a little bit of a headwind towards Bitcoin and crypto. You also have similar things on Mara. Again, something else we're looking at. And we're bullish on that support our broader macro thesis. But you can see you've got a number of gaps here that may want to get filled. So with Bitcoin making its short-term target, with the dollar and all the sort of macro news, you might be in for a turbulent couple of days, potentially week, before we set up to see that broader continuation. The other side of that, though, however, is don't bet on downside. There is, I think you're betting against the broader trend. I wouldn't go leveraged long anything right now in regards to the crypto space. Targets met, you know, we're showing you a number of kind of concerns that we have on the short term, broader term, bigger term time frame. We are probably the most bullish people in the room and have been some of the most accurate in regards to where things are going. This is the CME's futures. Again, it's kind of interesting because Bitcoin trades 24/7, whereas the traditional markets, which is how you have these gaps, don't. So I'm not sure that I'm a big believer in gaps. You have filled this gap, however, here. Gaps often get filled. You do have a number of gaps on the stock market as well. And that's going to kind of potentially be negative for the broader risk category. So if you look at something like, although this looks to have been filled, Amazon is a stock that we think is going to, sorry, this is Apple. Amazon is a stock that we think is going all the way to $263. Remember, we're more Bitcoin's in an uptrend against the stock market. There is a gap here. So there's lots of gapping going on. You also have, in regards to macroeconomic data this week, Coinbase is earnings. So we'll see. Short term, in the next couple of days or so, I am probably more expecting a little bit of a rest for Bitcoin based on the fact that it's made its targets, it's at resistance. It might need a little bit of a wind up. We've got lots of macroeconomic data. There's a lot of gaps on the stock market and actually crypto related stocks. But ultimately, for me, that's going to be a good opportunity to actually buy some more crypto, having assessed the broader trend and thinking we've got that right. And it really isn't, in my opinion, to be worried about. But we are leaning more towards a bit of a rest period for Bitcoin on the short term. Remember, broader sort of macro, we're exceptionally bullish. So that's really what I've got for you guys. It was quite a comprehensive one in regards to technical analysis, just sharing with you guys some things that we're looking at. If you want to become a Patreon and get a lot more information on all of this stuff and weekly meetings with me and so on and so forth on my portfolio, do consider checking the link out in the description. That's really all I've got for you guys. It's Monday. We'll see how the week shapes up. It's going to be an interesting week with all the data, Bitcoin making targets, dollar looking a little bit more strong than perhaps Bitcoin is, having made its target, potentially setting up in a bit of a falling wedge. That's going to lean on risk a little bit. Got quite a lot of gaps that I think may get filled on the likes of Coinbase and Mara, which are crypto-related stocks. Also the broader stock market, which has been doing spectacularly and may want to also rest. Something to watch. I have no idea what Joe Biden's tweets about. I don't think anybody has much of an idea in regards to that whole situation. And that is really all I've got for you guys. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one.